If you want to know how to get your client looking like this to this in 16 minutes total, then this is going to be the video for you. I'm not going to do any skipping. I'm not going to do any fast forwarding or editing for you guys. I just want to give you guys the raw material. And we started off debulking him. So in this case, I was using the Rebel clipper, which if you remember, years ago I used the Rebel. Of course, I still got my master blade on there, but I just wanted to try something new. The instincts are still on my station. There's nothing wrong with them. But I just felt like trying something new. So we've got this number 2 guard right here on the Rebel, and I'm going to take this all the way around. It's important to have some sort of powerful clipper if you're going to be removing bulk, right? This clipper in itself has a rotary motor, which rotary motor is known pretty well for being strong and being able to mow through all sorts of bulk. That's another reason why I also like the instant clipper, because even though it's like a magnetic motor, it still has really high RPMs. Magnetic motors definitely have gotten better over the years. So we're starting here with this number 2, and just make sure that you hit it from every single angle. You know, especially you always want to start going directly against the grain. If the hair grows forward, you're cutting backwards. If the hair grows to the left, you're cutting to the right. And after you knock all that down, just make sure you cut it sideways, use different angles, because fuzzy hair like this, I have hair, when my hair's short, it grows just like this, and it just tends to stick up. So if you miss any hairs, it's going to be really obvious when your client gets home and they look in the mirror. It's gonna be real easy to see the hairs that you miss. I'm not really too worried either about the hair at the bottom, because all that's gonna be faded out. I'm really just concentrating all of my efforts on the top of his head. So now that it's pretty much done, I'm gonna be able to switch over to have the clipper close, so that way we can establish the bald line. And the reason that I do this with the clipper closed, as you all probably already know if you've been a viewer of my channel for some time, I feel like it's a lot easier of a line to take out. It's a softer line to take out. So for me, it's a little more beginner friendly if you start off with the clipper closed. Now, I'm not going to remove all of the hair either. I like to leave a lot of that bulk at the bottom because I don't know if you agree with me on this. For me, it's actually easier to keep my eyes concentrated on the blend, if that makes sense. Like, if I have it balded out completely from the bottom, I feel like there's more area that my eyes have to concentrate on and stay focused on. But if I leave the bulk underneath, I can really just focus and lock in on those 1 to 2.5 inches worth of a blend, if that makes sense. If you haven't tried it before, give it a shot. Maybe you'll be able to relate to what I'm saying. The next panel that I'm going to put in here is with the zero guard closed. If you're more comfortable with it and if you're more used to it, you can go and just take your guard off and open up your lever. It's a very similar length, but for me, I feel like the zero guard closed does leave also a little bit of a softer line. It makes it a little easier for me. So when I come back down and I'm blending that line out, I know that if I put it in with the zero guard closed, by the time that I open the zero guard, and little by little, work my way like 0 open, 0 halfway, 0 closed, I know that it's going to match perfectly because that's what I put the line in with. Sometimes it's hard to make that transition from no guard to a guard. I feel like it's a little easier to transition from guard to guard, if that makes sense. Give that a shot as well. Since we already debulked his hair all the way down to a 2, at this point I'm going to take my number 1 guard open, and with that lever wide open, I'm going to use a floating motion. I'm really not going to try to set a new line per se. If you could see, I'm using more of my arm motion, up and down, and less of my wrist flicking motion. So I'm not trying to set a new line. I'm really just trying to rock the clipper off the shape of his head. So at this point, we are gradually going to work our way back down to that zero guard closed, that line that I just put in. So after you're done floating that clipper with the 1 open, you can see here I closed the lever now, and I'm gonna play right on that line. And remember, I do still have to break past that line that I put in with the zero guard closed. I do have to break past that if I'm gonna be able to erase it. If you don't push past that line, then you're not gonna cut enough hair. The blend is not gonna happen. So that's also why it's important to keep those straight up and down motions instead of trying to set in a harsh line or using scooping motions. If I can keep a straight up and down motion, you know, where I'm still using the shape of his head to rock the clipper off, then it's going to leave a nice softer finish. And you can see we're already almost done here with that with that one guard closed. After this, like I said in the beginning, I was planning ahead when I put in that first line with the zero closed. So my next step is going to be take that one guard off and then work that zero guard open to closed. And then all we have to worry about is the bald line at the end. Also, always make sure that you have a clean canvas. So if you have an air hose, this might be a good time to make sure that you remove all the excess hair off of their head. You're also constantly brushing and combing through the hair just to make sure that once you make the cut, that you remove excess hair so you're not chasing a line or chasing a dark spot that doesn't exist, right? So just like I said here, now we're back to that zero guard open, and little by little we're gonna play with that lever until we work our way back down closed. So remember, we started this cut by putting in that zero guard closed, which means that now if I work my way zero open, zero halfway, zero closed, it should match up perfectly, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's definitely a reason why I set in the lines and use the guards that I do, use the steps that I do. I just really just try to think ahead and make it a little bit easier for myself. Now let's zoom in here because I want to show you guys how I have to break past that line a little bit. You have to push beyond the line that you put in if you're going to have any hope of erasing it. So since I started that line all the way closed with a slightly softer motion, I'm going to be pushing past that just a little bit. I want to break through that line with it all the way closed and then touch the notch a little bit, open it up just a little bit and push a little bit more. Open up the notch, the lever a little bit more and push a little bit more. And I'm going to repeat this motion over and over and over again until I'm all the way open with the lever. And once you're all the way open with the lever, if there's still a couple dark spots, you can use the corner of your blade and really pick at those areas. You know, imagine little dark spots. Like you can see there, I saw a little dark spot. And with the corner of the blade, imagine it's a crowd of dots, right? And that makes it look a lot darker. If you use the corner of your blade, you can really get in there and break it up. You can remove certain hairs, certain areas. So that way it kind of all flows smooth together. As you can see, that area right there, there's a good little dent in his head. So that's where you have to finesse it a little bit. And then you have to just make it happen, you know, like not everybody's hair grows the same, but if you follow the same steps and you use the same system, the same principles on all your haircuts, they're all going to come out blurry. You know, I feel like in my channel, of course, here and there, I try different little fading methods and just to switch it up a little bit. But I want to teach you that consistency leads to efficiency, and efficiency leads to a fair wage, a very fair wage for what you do. And you're going to see right here, so just because you already went through the step, for example, with the zero guard closed, like we already did some fading work there with that zero guard closed, and open and halfway, that doesn't mean that you can't go back to that step if you feel like it's still a little bit dark. Now you saw on the side area when I was fading in the temple area, I didn't really feel like I needed to go back with that zero guard closed, but you got to remember, sometimes the hair in the back of the head does grow a little bit more dense. It can be a little bit darker in the back than it will be on the sides. So there's definitely nothing wrong with that. But that's also why it's so important for you to have a good system for cutting hair. Whatever system you pick, whether it's my system, whether it's the half attack system, whether it's Bassio's system, Sean Cuts Hair, whoever you decide to follow all their steps, you have to lock in and try not to switch it up too much, because I already knew that dark area was covered with the zero guard. Somewhere in there with the zero guard from open to closed, I already knew that was the area of the head that needed to be cut with, because I use the same system on every single head, if that makes sense, right? So that's just a quick gem there. I think there's definitely value in consistency. So now we're gonna move on to the lineup. I'm really happy with how the blend is looking so far. And if you notice, I'm still not gonna bald out that area. I think I'm gonna save that for the very last step, because again, I just want to stay concentrated on that fading area, on that blending area. So I used a little bit of liquid spritz. This time I ended up using the Chazat brand. And man, it's crazy. That brand has been around for so many years. If I'm not mistaken, I remember using that way back in, 2014, the first time I stepped foot in a barbershop to cut. They have a small bottle. They had a big bottle. I can't believe that brand is still around. But it's a good product, man. It's basically like I feel like it's hairspray diluted with some alcohol, essentially, is like the formula, right? It removes a little bit of the oil, it freezes the hair in place. And I ended up pulling out my cocoa trimmers. I had these on my station. I was super curious about that digital gap blade, and man, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Now, I feel like it's basically a clone of a Babyliss blade, so I actually think that you may be better off long term using a Babyliss blade. I think the cocoa trimmer, it's super awesome. Like, I'm telling you, your first impressions off the bat with a digital gap blade is crazy good. Like, I couldn't believe it. You know, it gave me Saber vibes. Like the first time that I used the Saber trimmer with the one blade. But the benefit of it is that you don't have to gap the blade at all. You really don't have to gap the blade. So, you know, that's something to consider. You can get the same results from other trimmers. I feel like the technology is so good these days that there's so many great blades out there. But cocoa is going to be especially good for somebody who just wants zero effort and they want to be, you know, they want it already gapped to perfection. But what happened is I had a great 3 or 4 week run with the trimmers. And then I felt like they maybe started to bite just a little bit, because I always test, like, at least once a week I'll test my trimmers on myself, line up my beard a little bit just to kind of see how it feels on the neck. And I started to feel like they bit a little bit. So then when I reached out to customer service, I'm like, hey, you know, what's going on with this? Like, do you have any kind of guarantee on the blades? They told me, hey, we only cover it if your gap shifts within 7 days. I'm like, well, it's been a month. It hasn't been that long, but it's already outside of their warranty phase where they cover that gap. So if I'm revisiting the idea of the cocoa trimmer, most of the value is in the gap itself, and they only cover that gap for literally a week. So God forbid you drop it, or you take apart the blade because you want to get a good deep cleaning or something, then if you lose that gap, all of the value is gone. So, you know, just something to consider there. It's not like it's a perfect cutting machine, but the overall value, I feel like it lost the value once the blade started to shift a little bit. I think Babyliss blades shift a little bit less. So, you know, that's just something to consider. If you're going to get the cocos, they hit great, but you have to take care of that gap. You have to watch and make sure that the blade doesn't shift. But I mean, as you can see, they're cutting really good. They're cutting really good. So, you know, I was happy to experiment with these, and now I can give you guys an honest opinion on those. Trimmer's cool. The machine is good. It did get loud. I feel like the Babyliss does stay a little bit less loud. You know, the Sabers are damn near quiet, like no noise. So, you know, that's something else to consider. But, you know, you guys can see there, man, it didn't really take too long to get the blade looking right. I mean, to get the edge looking right. I'm coming back now to bald out now that I'm happy with everything. And we really only have 2 minutes left in this process. As you could see, it barely took us 16 minutes to get this whole entire process done. So I'm balding out right now. I could have used the trimmers, I could have used some clippers, but you know, I feel like if you can get yourself a detachable blade, or even better, because it's a lot cheaper, you can use the Gamma Skin blade. You can use my discount code if you end up getting the Gamma Skin. I'm letting another barber in my shop use them right now. But it's the same concept. The detachable with the 5-0 blade, or the Gamma Skin. That way you have a dedicated clipper, so that way you don't have to wear down your trimmer blades in debulking, if that makes sense. So, you know, trimmer blades are too expensive, especially if you got some cocos. That blade literally could cost you $90. So, you know, that's just something to consider. I would start off with the with the Gamma Skin. But if you have a bigger budget, if you can spend $400 on a clipper and $35 on a blade, then go with you know, a good detachable blade. Now here with the shaver, as you can see, I like to kind of start off going down with the grain. It just kind of smooths out that transition area where I'm going from the clipper closed to like the trimmer length that I did with the detachable. It kind of helps soften it up, blend it up a little bit. If I do that step first, go down with the grain, until the hair is almost skin tight now, and I can see exactly the area that I need to go against the grain right up to. Every little step that I do while I'm cutting hair is with efficiency in mind. I'm planning ahead, because if I would have jumped straight into going against the grain with that foil shaver, I probably would have left a line. If that makes sense, I probably would have left the line. But if I can eliminate the line first, it's going to make it a lot easier for me to follow up with the shaver going against the grain, you know. So, and again, I really tried doing better this time with the focus. I'm sorry that the focus is on the chair in the background, but man, this fade is looking blurry though. Even when it was in focus, and out of focus, the fade is definitely looking blurry. So look, we're down to the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the haircut is done. Now, at this point, I definitely, like, your client literally could be done at this point, but I'm gonna go and I'm gonna enhance it a little bit. So we're gonna use the Tomb 45 enhancement, the no drip. Actually, I'm using the Onyx Black, and I'm gonna be using it on the Tomb 45 Beam Team XL. And I'll tell you, this thing has some power to it, guys. This is a really awesome air compressor, because for me, I like the fact that it wirelessly charges. So whether you have a regular phone wireless charger, or if you're using the power mat, which so many of us have by now, that the area that's labeled Tomb 45 Beam Team, you can literally put your thing on there. You can put the compressor on there and it'll charge wirelessly. I look forward to when it has like a smaller body. You know, I think that sometimes the body can be a little bit weird at first, but you definitely get used to it. And it's so big because it definitely has power. I learned a trick that I'm going to show you guys a little bit down the road, where Loco Blends, he's one of the owners of Tomb 45. He taught me how to basically play with the needle so you can get a whole lot more airflow. And I was able to blow both no drip and Kiss Express out of the machine, so, and without clogging it up either. So I'm definitely going to bring that to you guys. So yeah, definitely leave a comment if you're interested in that, because a lot of people would complain about how it gets clogged up with Kiss Express, you know, for people who prefer to use that. But I haven't had that issue yet. I want to show you guys that. Now, this is also the Tomb 45 triple cartridge razor. I like to use my blade on the medium setting, so I just feel like if the blade sticks out a little bit, I can be a little more detailed. I can really pick little hairs here and there. But if you use the low exposure, it's definitely a lot safer. It's more beginner friendly. So that's why I think it's an awesome investment. You can literally use that same razor as a beginner barber, as an intermediate, and an advanced barber, because you also have a fully exposed setting on that. And yeah, I think he was super happy with it, man. Like, it was awesome. He actually was a walk-in when I took him. So hey, don't forget to use my discount codes if you want the Rebel, or if you want any of the Tomb 45 tools. My codes are right there in the video. And this is the finished product, man. Thank you so much for sticking around.